Welcome back to the Beauty Industry Leaders podcast. Today we have the pleasure of introducing an incredible industry leader, Isabella Loneragan. With nearly 2 decades of experience working in dermatology, plastic surgery, and cosmaceutical formulation, Isabella has earned a reputation as one of Australia's leading skin and dermal therapists. Isabella's global training spans South Africa, London, Paris, and New Zealand, where she mastered both modern and ancient skincare techniques. She is Australia's first Buccal and Sculptural Lifting specialist and one of the few in the country trained in the ancient art of Japanese Kobudo and Chinese Transi acupressure. Currently, Isabella operates the renowned Isabella Loneragan Skin Clinic in Bowral and Sydney, offering bespoke facial treatments, including her trademarked Intrinsic Facial and Intrinsic Illumination Infusion. Her previous ventures include successfully founding and selling the Dermal Diary in North Sydney and Exquisite Skin Therapy in South Africa. Beyond her clinical expertise, Isabella is the creator of Ragan Skin, a results-driven skincare line designed specifically for the Australian climate, and she has recently been named the Champion of Beauty Services at the 2024 Australian Women's Small Business Champion Awards. She's passionate about psychodermatology, a field where she connects skin health with psychological well-being, and frequently shares her insights as the resident beauty expert on Channel 7 Sunrise. I'm so excited to dive into her incredible journey, the development of her unique skincare techniques, and how she continues to shape the beauty industry. So let's welcome Isabella Loneragan to the Beauty Industry Leaders podcast.
Yay! Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
It's been a long time coming, lots of chats forwards and backwards, rescheduling, but we finally got there in the end.
We got here, that's right.
I was reading through your timeline and your bio about who you are, what you've done, what you've achieved, and I have to say I am so blown away by the amount of different areas you've been able to niche into, the businesses that you've not only built but also sold, and also where you're moving forward to in the future. So
yeah, wild.
But like, who are you? Where did you come from? Like, were your parents entrepreneurial, or were you the first one to kind of go down the path of business ownership?
It's interesting you ask that because my mother and father, I was raised in a very nuclear environment. My mother stayed at home and my father worked. He came from a family business and quite a successful one that spanned many industries in regional Australia. And even though my dad worked in kind of a corporate environment, he was very entrepreneurial, very keen negotiator, doing amazing things like would buy a boat when we were young and then sell off shares and sell himself out of it, but then stay on as the manager so he could use the boat and let his family use the boat, but he didn't have any buy into it. So just things like that. So yes, I think I'm very much my father's daughter and quite entrepreneurially keen. But then my dad's a funny man. He likes stability. So all of his kids now, I think, except my middle brother we're all entrepreneurs. We all have our own business. And Dad thinks it's wild because he likes financial stability. And he's like, why would you go and do that when you could just work for a corporate? And I'm like, well, because corporate's boring and I don't like being told what to do by other people. So, which is hilarious because neither does my dad. So I don't know why he doesn't see that. But yeah, I learned a lot from Dad, and especially on the business dealing and negotiation side, just watching him growing up and watching him deal with little negotiations all the way up to listening to him on the phone negotiate with people. So yeah, it's funny. Yes and no. I do come from entrepreneurs and yet I sort of don't. It's bizarre. Yeah.
It's really interesting because it's obviously something that you can either, I guess, pick up and learn and develop those skills, or you've just only seen that. And then you kind of realize that that's the pathway I'm going down. I don't want to go work corporate. I don't want to work a 9 to 5 for someone else. I want to do my own thing. And I think our stories with having that entrepreneurial father figure are so similar in the sense that when you're exposed to it, that's all you want to do. You know, why would I go do the other thing?
I didn't get into the beauty industry till I was 27 and I'm now 43. So I was a very
No,
late.
you're not.
I'm 43, yay. Yeah. So I was late to the industry, but I just had a feeling that it was the right place for me because I knew I'd be able to flex my entrepreneurial muscle. And I was very keen to be a business owner. Mind you, I didn't know what that actually meant, to be brutally honest. And so it's not for the faint of heart being a business owner and driving business and making money, you know, making profit. And, you know, it really, especially with the way Australian businesses are regulated and not regulated, you know, it's an interesting industry, but I definitely got very sick of being in corporate and being, you know, controlled and not being able to be my true business self. I used to have a lot of, like, I used to work at a dermatology clinic for almost 5 years. And whilst I loved every minute of the learning about skin, I hated the business side because I couldn't add value where I wanted to because they weren't commercially sound enough for me. They wanted to follow very strict business rules, whereas I'm a rule breaker. I'm an ask for forgiveness, not ask for permission person. I just go and do my thing and then I work it out later. And I couldn't do that when I worked for other people. They wouldn't give the budget for it. They wouldn't allow it. They just didn't love too many ideas, whereas I'm an ideas woman. So I very much knew that I wanted to go back to work for myself because I knew I could go a lot further working for myself, which I have done, than just sitting back in a salary. Yeah. So I think it is a personality type thing.
I can agree with that for sure. So what first sparked your passion in psychodermatology during your studies in behavioral health science and psychology? Like, how has this field shaped your approach to skincare?
Oh, good question. Well, actually, when I was 17, I flew to the US and spent a year in America as my gap year. I was hired as a nanny over there, and part of the nanny program that I went with was that they would send you to an American university for a year. It was a wild deal. And so when I went to Penn State in Pennsylvania, which is technically an Ivy League university, and it just so happened that I was in the area to be able to go to that university. So when I went to choose my subject for the year, it was either I was looking at the sociology textbooks in the textbook shop, and next to it was child psychology. And I opened the child psychology book and I started reading and I thought, wow, like this is amazing. I'm so into this. So I went and enrolled in child psychology, did child psychology at Penn State for a year and loved it and absolutely killed it. It was just phenomenal. I just loved everything about brain development and nature versus nurture and how people feel about themselves and why. So it really started at a granular level for me when I was 17. And then when I came back, I applied to the University of Sydney and did a degree in behavioral health science psychology because I wanted to chase this psychology stream that I was so interested in. So I did my psychology and science degree and I loved it. But I came out of the University of Sydney and I had no idea what I was going to do. I was 21 or 22 and I was like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I wasn't sure. And I was working with Asperger's and other kind of learning difficulties, children with learning difficulties at the time and doing quite well. But because I was good at it and I was so young, I kind of thought there's got to be more out there that is more challenging for me. So what's it going to be? So I kind of jumped between different industries. I worked for Bridge Climb, which is Sydney, the company that runs the Harbour Bridge Climb in Sydney. I did PR and sales for them for many years. I worked in all sorts of retailers. I did a bit of everything. And then finally I decided to move to London because I was a bit bored in Sydney. I was young. I was single. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? So my sister was living in London and I thought I'll go over there because I've got a support network. So over I went and I fell into finance and I worked finance for a few years. Like I was all over the shop. And then I met a South African man and he got transferred back to South Africa to open up an office for the company he was working for. And he said to me, do you want to move to South Africa? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll move to South Africa. So, of course, when we moved, we were on the pound and we were going to the South African rand, which means we were basically millionaires because the conversion rate gave us heaps of money. So I could afford to put myself through a beauty diploma. And I had looked at doing a beauty diploma after I left my degree, after I finished and qualified my degree. But I remember it was $8,500 back then, which was about 2002. And I already was up to my eyeballs in HECS debt. And mum and dad were like, we're not funding any more qualifications. Like, you can go to work. So I had the interest in the industry, but I didn't have the money. Whereas when we moved to South Africa in about 2007, I had the money and didn't have to work. So I went and started this diploma, and I thought, you can do it modular in South Africa. You can do a qualification per subject. So I did facials first and I absolutely loved it. And then I just added everything. So I did a traditional beauty therapy diploma, and I opened a tiny business out of our spare room in Cape Town in South Africa. And I literally did letterbox drops, and I, networked amongst my friends in Cape Town, and literally tiny drops of business came through, and I grew it and grew it and grew it. And then after 4 years of running it, I was fully booked, and I ended up selling it to a 5-star hotel in Cape Town because it was actually quite a successful business after growing it for 4 years. But one of the secrets I learned over there was, if you keep your overheads as low as you can, it frees you up. Whereas I know in our industry, a lot of people think, you've got to go and rent a big area and rent a big commercial space. I didn't do any of that. I ran this tiny little business from home and kept my expenses extremely, extremely low. And I just went from there. And it was such a good grassroots learning curve for me about how you must watch your bottom line from day one and not invest really heavily before you've kind of really found where your passion was. And my passion was facials, and then finding the right product. So I think, to answer your question, I think inherently I was really driven to be in the industry, and the psychology took me this way, because when I did the diploma, I realized my whole job was about making people feel good. And that's the basis of psychodermatology. The whole basis of psychodermatology is how you feel about your skin and how your skin makes you feel about you. So that is pretty much a traditional beauty therapist job description, if you think about it on a granular level. So the psychodermatology is a new term that has come about in the last sort of 5 to 7 years, whereas I've had my psychology degree since 2002, but it was always there. We just hadn't identified it correctly. And now I use the concept of psychodermatology heavily in my day-to-day life and in my training when I train skin therapists in my courses, in my facial massage courses. So, yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a long-winded path to get here, but actually now that I think about it, I was always destined to work within the psychological and dermatological I can't even say it myself, fields, and mesh them together, which is what I do every day. I've seen clients all morning, and every single client that has arrived has told me that they don't like how they feel about their skin, which is everything that I do all day long.
It's really interesting because when you were unpacking that story, just hearing that, you did a bit of PR, you did a bit of marketing and sales, then you moved into financial, you actually accumulated or acquired all the different skills that are needed to run a successful business. I think that's one of the things I see creates a massive disconnect with entrepreneurs or people that think they're entrepreneurs in the industry that don't actually have the skills to run a business, but they have the skills to provide a service, and just really seeing that it didn't happen overnight for you. You trialed, you tested different things, you learned different things, and you observed a lot, which I think is really cool.
And I think too, you're right in that, like, anyone can provide a service. And again, I talk about this a lot when I train. You can give a facial, or you can give a facial, and then that is separate to running a business. So I make sure that when I train therapists, I train them in the business side as well as the hands-on side, because you can learn to wax a leg, but you might not be able to price the leg waxing properly or market it properly or rebook them properly or blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, one thing I did learn heavily was that when I worked in financial recruitment for a while, and it was so soul destroying because it was so impersonal. Whereas what I do is all personal, and people all often say, oh, well, it's just business, don't take it personally. And I firmly believe it is not that. Like, all business is personal, when it comes to dealing with how people feel about themselves. So I very much work one-on-one. I don't have staff anymore. I don't have skin therapists that work for me anymore. And one of the reasons I don't have skin therapists that work for me anymore is because I grew my business through relationships. And in order to maintain that relationship, you have to basically find someone that is able to maintain that relationship. You can hire someone that can wax a really quick leg and give a really great facial, but if they're incapable of managing relationships and managing how you make sure that you are influencing how people feel about themselves, then it's going to fail. So I love now, I sold my business that I had lots of therapists in, and I'm back to working one-on-one. And that's where I'm at my strongest, is that when I meet them from the beginning and run them through their treatment cycle the whole way. So yeah, there are a million different elements to running a business. And I think a lot of people do get into the idea that they're going to run a business, but then they're lacking in so much experience and lacking in so much knowledge and know-how that it fails.
I just attended Bali Business Retreat, and one of the multi-7-figure business owners that was there, he said, there's business owners and there's fake business owners. And,
yes.
The fake business owners are the ones that saw that person online going on all these holidays and making this money, and they think, oh yeah, I'll just go provide this service or develop a product.
Do that too.
Yeah. And then it's like, hold on, like, I've got to do branding, marketing, sales, hiring, team, leadership, all of those different components. And like, obviously, as you know, to be able to build all the different businesses you have in different industries, niches, both service and product, there are so many moving parts that, yeah, the beauty side is just one thing, but business is just such a key skill and a whole different can of worms in itself.
And it's a 24/7, like I eat, sleep and breathe business.
Yes.
It doesn't stop when you go to sleep. That's the other thing, is it's not for the faint of heart. You really need to be prepared. A lot of people like a salary. And that was one thing that I enjoyed for a time at working in dermatology, is that I'd run a business in South Africa and I ate, slept and breathed my business. And then when I came back to Sydney and worked in dermatology, it was a dream, because I'd start work at 9:00 and end at 5:00, and I'd go home and I would just go out with my friends on my salary. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I don't need to do any work on the weekend, or I totally enjoyed it. So I had a 5-year hiatus from running a business. Meanwhile, I was learning all this stuff at this new job. So it was great. But then when I left that job and opened the Dermal Diary, it was back into 24/7. So yeah, you kind of have to be prepared. I get very frustrated when I have either other business owners that don't do what I do, or don't do it to the degree of what I do, or kind of women that don't work say to me, you're so lucky you've got a business, you can just, you're so lucky you can just see clients whenever you want. And I'm like, yeah, I can totally see clients whenever I want, which is 24/7, because I've got a mortgage to pay, and I don't get maternity leave, and I don't get paid holidays. I don't get any of that. It's 24/7. So yeah, there is no luck involved in being an entrepreneur. It is solid work all the time. As you would
strategy, systems and processes. A lot of beauty do not have systems and processes, and they don't have the support either. So I think by the time this episode airs, the week before will be the small business owner versus entrepreneur. And that small business owner is, I have to do it all myself. Like, I can't afford to hire this. It's an expense. It's just that kind of scarcity mindset. Whereas the entrepreneur is actually going, hey, even though we're offering skin, I've got to get a marketer. I've got to get this person. And they're actually just a CEO that is hiring all the right team to support them. Yeah, exactly. I know when we first spoke, you corrected me, and I've actually been practicing. I'm calling it Buccal now, not Buccal.
Yay!
I actually had one of my amazing friends and clients, Sam from Laneway. She just recently did your training, the Intrinsic Intensive, and she loved it. I actually went and had it done as well.
Yay!
And I was super curious. Like, you obviously trademarked this, and how does it as a treatment stand out from other options on the market, and how is it going training other people in this modality?
Well, Buccal is like a facial on steroids. It's a true 3D facial, and now that you've had it, you'll understand that it is a 3D facial, and you're massaging muscles that carry a lot of emotional tension. So, for example, when women get mad, we often clench, or we clench in our subconscious when we're asleep, which is often a stress response. So we get all of this tension that builds up in our face, but we don't do anything about it. We go to a massage therapist and they massage our neck and our shoulders and our back and our calves. We might go to a chiro for an alignment or an osteo for another alignment, but no one gets into here. And this is where women carry a lot of their tension. Yet with Buccal, we get right in there and we effectively massage and squeeze that tension out, which can be quite intense and emotional in itself. So I think when I released it, and when people were coming to me and saying, one of two things. Some were coming to me and saying, I've cancelled I don't spend on massage anymore. I just come to you for facial and massage. That's when I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool. Then I had other people turning up to me saying, I don't like facials, but I have heard you do something that is not a facial. It's something different. And I was like, wow. So what I worked out was that my little target market of women that I was targeting in North Sydney at the Dermal Diary had doubled because of referrals. So friends were going home and saying to their friends, hey, I just had this amazing facial, to their other friend. And the other friend was saying, oh no, I don't like facials. That's not my thing. And the first friend would say, this is not a facial. You've got to go. So suddenly my scope and my target of business had grown exponentially, because suddenly people that didn't like facials were coming to me for facials. So I was converting non-believers into believers. And then the other thing that was wild too was that they were saying, oh, I don't spend money on skincare. I just buy it from Woolworths or Target or wherever. And of course, after a few facials with me and feeling how nice their skin felt, they would then say, can you recommend a moisturizer? Can you recommend a cleanser? Can you recommend something for this red skin? So suddenly you can see the conversion started happening, and my business just grew and grew and grew. So honestly, learning Buccal and sculptural lifting and unique facial techniques not only has changed my life as a skin therapist and a business owner, but has changed so many other lives in both my customers and my students, because they realize, oh my God, this is life-changing, this technique. So when I was training all of my therapists, when I owned the Dermal Diary, because the demand was so insane, I ended up having to train 10 therapists. I wrote a manual then, and then the manual kind of went on ice because we had 2 lockdowns and I had 2 babies. But then after the second lockdown, and probably my baby was about maybe 18 months, I had a clinic in New Zealand call me and say, we want to fly you to New Zealand to train all of our therapists in our clinic. And I was like, amazing. Sure, I'll come. I've got a manual. I've got heaps of experience training. No problem. I said, but on one condition, that we open it up New Zealand wide. So I marketed to New Zealand. I actually launched the Intrinsic Intensive Training course in New Zealand. Then I brought it back to Australia. So I used that as the beta group to train therapists in 4 days in a row, because before that I was training them over some months in my business. But this way I just trained them in 4 days. And then I launched it to the Australian market. And I think now I've trained over 100 therapists in Australia in the Intrinsic Intensive. And because it's so unique, it's very popular. It's very, very popular. And also, you can charge a premium. And I don't even like using the word premium, because it suggests that you're charging this extra amount on top of everything else. But really, if you're going to invest in yourself as a therapist and pay for yourself to be upskilled, you want to be making sure that you are earning a premium salary per hour of time you invest into your client's skin. So in the Intrinsic Intensive, I teach all of my therapists how to price accordingly, why they're not pricing accordingly, where the fears are. So yeah, we do a lot of business training in the course, which is part of the package and very important, because most therapists that I know are scared to charge accordingly, which annoys me, because cost of living goes up, rent goes up, and we devalue the whole industry if we charge little bits of money for our services.
Do you think it's to do with low self-worth?
Yes, 100%.
And do you think if more women stop comparing themselves to each other and valuing their worth off what someone else is valuing themselves as, we would be in our own lane? Because I always think this, right? I have clients that I say, look, what you're charging right now, we look at the numbers, you're not making any profit. And I said, how did you come up with your prices? And it's like, oh, well, I just looked at what other people were charging and I went a little bit under.
Down the road.
Yeah. And it's just like, you don't know what their overheads are. You don't know what their experience is. You don't know how much time and energy they've invested. And I think to really add on to what you're saying is we get undervalued as an industry because we don't value ourselves. Totally. And so the moment someone like Isabella starts coming out and charging $550 for a facial and she's so certain about the value she delivers and confident in her worth, other people might look at that and get triggered and go, how can she charge that? Who does she think she is?
They do.
But the value you provide, the service, clients pay it.
They pay it.
Yeah.
This is what I say in my training. I say they pay it, and I'm proof that they pay it because, and the thing is, the industry, people are spending so much money in our industry. In fact, if they don't pay it with you, they're going to pay it with someone else. Why should it not be you? If you've invested to upskill yourself, why should it not be you? And then the next comment I get back is, oh, but I'm scared that if I raise my prices, I'm going to lose the customer. And I say, if you lose a customer because you raise your prices, that's a great thing. I'm happy you've lost that customer because guess what? That's going to make room for the customer that will pay it. So get rid of the customers that don't want to pay it and use the time. If you have a gap because you've lost a customer, then use a time to do correct marketing and follow up with clients that will pay. Use the time accordingly, or take a break, have an hour meditation, take your dog for a walk. Honestly, if you're able to almost double your prices and only see one client instead of two for the same money, yay for you. So I get very, very strict in my courses about why and how you do this. And it's, if you say no to someone else, as in, no, I will not let you pay that, you need to pay more, you're going to say yes to yourself and your own growth. So people are paying it no matter what. And I've got the statistics to prove it because I've done so much work on industry growth. I've gone knee deep into this. The statistics, financial statistics in both the Australian beauty industry and worldwide, and America is world effectively, indicates that our market is growing exponentially and people are spending. So if they're not spending with you, there's either a reason they're not spending with you, so you should be upskilling so they do spend with you.
I definitely believe that the more you invest in your brand on top of your skill set, the higher the price point you can charge because people are buying into the experience, the prestige, the person. Like obviously you have created such an incredible brand around Isabella Loneragan. Even how you were saying before, I was providing these facials and now people are coming to me asking me for skincare, and then you've gone and done your own skincare line, Ragan Skin.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, Ragan Skin was born out of necessity and demand because I'd come out of, when I was hired into dermatology, one of my first jobs that dermatologist said to me was go and find a skincare line for us to stock in our dermatology practice. The problem was when I went to market, there wasn't one that did what I needed it to do. There was about 6 that all had holes. So I had to present like 3 or 4 ranges to the directors of this dermatology practice and say, there is not one product range on the market that does everything we need. So we have to stock these 3 or 4 ranges, which was wild to me because it's so expensive to have those kind of products on your shelf. You've got all your money tied up in your product. So then when I left that clinic, I then opened the Dermal Diary and I had a couple of ranges going, but it got frustrating because I was having to cherry pick. So someone would come in with acne and whatever line would offer a good serum for this, and some other product did the cleanser that I liked. And Then one day you'd run out of the cleanser, so then you'd have to go and spend $5,000 on ordering the new products because they wouldn't let you spend less than $5,000, but you only wanted to order the cleanser. And it just became so ridiculous to me. And I also had spent the 5 years in dermatology and had a cosmetic chemistry background back from my science degree. So I was like, all right, I think I can do this myself. So I literally was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and find someone to manufacture that I can work with. So then I wrote a list of what I needed, the prerequisites of finding a manufacturer. Australia had to be Australian made, no negotiations. I wanted recyclable options of product containers. The product containers, I had a whole list of requirements. Like it had to have a see-through window on the side. When you pump, you can see how much product you've got left. I got a say in where we sourced the ingredients from. For example, if I wanted to buy my vitamin C from Switzerland, I was able to do that. They wouldn't dictate to me where I got my ingredients from. I wanted to be able to have direct email contact to the head pharmacist, which was one of the things important to me because I wanted to be able to email him or her and be able to say, this has happened, or can I create this product and get an answer direct? And I wanted a tiny MOQ. Most manufacturers make you order 5 or 10 or 20,000 products per order. So you can imagine as a small business owner, if someone said to me, you need to order 10,000 cleansers, like my whole garage would be full of cleansers. So I wanted to make sure that I could order as little or as big as I wanted. So I literally wrote this out on a vision board and went, okay, these are all the things that I wanted. And I found them within a month. And then we started formulating. And so it took me a year to formulate my first 8 products. So I found them in the January, and the first 8 products of my line arrived in the December. And that was, I think, in 2018. And it's been going ever since. And it's been fantastic because I designed the whole range around my target client. So every problem that my target client had, I had a solution for. So when I owned the Dermal Diary, we kept on some of the ranges because I had a funny thing. I was like, I don't want to seem really arrogant and be like, well, my product range is the best. I don't need to have any other product range. But then when I sold the Dermal Diary and opened Isabella Loneragan Skin, I don't stock any other range now. I just stock my own. It's been the best thing for me because now I only attract customers that have heard about Ragan or heard about me and have read the reviews and understand what they're up for and understand the process. I don't get any tire kickers. I don't get any discount chasers. I don't get any of that because I've put out to the industry, this is what I stand for. This is what I provide. This is the price point. I make the product. I design the facials. So I only attract what I want in the business. And it's been a really good road to follow, which again, I teach that in the Intrinsic Intensive in my facial massage course, because a lot of people go out there and kind of try and cater for everyone. And it's hard to cater for everyone because not everyone is going to like what you do. So you're almost better just to hone in on what you really want to do and what really works for your business model. And for me, creating my own product line worked for me. It's not for everyone, but it worked for me. And it's been going really well. And now even better. So it just keeps going from strength to strength.
That's amazing. What an achievement. I think as well, like there's so many things I want to ask you about because I'm going, hold on, you also have an accredited course for therapists and practitioners. And then I'm going, wait, you're also the resident beauty expert on Channel 7. And I'm just going like, I want to ask all these questions. And I don't think we're going to have enough time. I'm just sitting here.
The resident beauty is so funny. That was an accident. I call it my accidental TV career. Everyone's like, oh my God, did you have to like audition? And no, it came about almost accidentally, and then it grew, and then they promoted me into the resident skin and beauty expert, and now that's what I do. I do TV. It's been wild. So I don't even know how. Yeah, it's I have no answer for that stuff. There's no cut and paste for my career, that's for sure. It's been like this.
How do you find it's contributed to your growth and exposure as a personal brand?
So, good question. Originally, when I first did it, it's been amazing for the growth of the brand. People spend more money with me, I've noticed, because I've worked out that if you're on TV, you must be important and you must know what you're doing. And that's what I worked out really quickly, is that people would arrive and they'd usually spend X amount on their first time visit with me. And suddenly if they arrived and they said, I saw you on Sunrise, then they would spend more, because it almost created an instant credibility and sense of trust, which I find hilarious, because I don't even watch morning TV. I don't have time. I've got 2 kids under 4. I'm running 3 businesses. So I do not watch morning TV. Like, I'm on it and I don't watch it, because when I'm on it, I'm on it. And when I'm not, I'm working, or I'm dropping kids to school, or I'm in my clinic. So initially I noticed that, but that only happened a couple of times. And then for a while, nothing really happened. Only people that knew and followed me on Instagram knew that I was on TV. But then, funnily enough, I got this client from Tasmania who started to research Ragan Skin, because I was talking about Ragan Skin on Sunrise. And then she started buying from me, and then she told all of her friends, and all of her friends had said they'd seen me on Sunrise. So now I've got quite a strong Tasmanian following, which is fantastic. Like, I can go to Tasmania and do a day or 2 of facials, because they all started watching me on Sunrise and then bought Ragan Skin. So it's definitely pulled out a different type of target client that I didn't really know existed. But yes, it's definitely added to the credibility of what I do, because the other thing is I get on and I speak about topics that a lot of people want to hear about, which is a lot of, TikTok trends, DIY, why should we be doing this over that, where trends with skincare. And a lot of people that are able to watch morning TV are interested in that sort of stuff. So it's been a wild learning curve for me too. And live TV, again, is not for the faint of heart. You are literally put on a set and told to talk. So it can be quite confronting, because there's zero room for error, and I don't get a teleprompter. Only the hosts get a teleprompter. So they just fire questions at me and I just have to answer them, with effectively like 500,000 people watching you on live TV. So it can be quite nerve-wracking, but I think I've been doing it for almost 2 years now, which I didn't realize until the other day, when I went, like a memory came up in one of my Facebook feeds or something, and I saw the date. So it's somewhere between 18 months and 2 years. And yeah, it's been fantastic just to get in front of people that I would not normally get in front of through my clinic and through traditional advertising of my products.
I definitely think when you go down the PR route, it gives you a lot more exposure. Like, just recently, yes, I've been looking more into PR myself, and it's like, where do you want to go? Where are the people hanging out that you want to attract? And as successful, busy entrepreneurs or business owners, you're not spending a lot of time looking at the media or watching TV. But for the everyday person who has, like, for example, when you work in the 9 to 5, I finish up work and I'm just going to sit there, put TV on or whatever it is, watch Netflix.
Yeah.
They scroll through Facebook for hours. So sometimes it's really interesting to look at the different marketing strategies you'd use to attract different types of people. I know this is kind of going on a tangent, but in Perth, it's really interesting because I live in Crawley or Dalkeith, Nedlands. So that's part of the GT, the Golden Triangle, which is like the richer suburbs. And it's really interesting because throughout all of Stirling Highway, which is this long highway that goes through those richer areas, they have all these billboards, and all the billboards are always promoting like these luxury high-end brands. So it might be jewelry, it might be watches.
Yes.
And you don't really see that billboard marketing. And I was like, why are billboards so popular here? And I was like, because a lot of these high-income earners and people like that, they don't have time to watch TV. So that's how and where they're capturing the attention. I don't know if that was really helpful to add, but it was just something that popped into my mind.
Well, no, that's how this whole Tasmania contingent came for me, because the people that were watching Sunrise were like, they listened to me over and over again. They finally reached out and were like, you seem to know what you're talking about. I'm interested in your skincare. And then the next minute we had all these customers in Tasmania, and through word of mouth. So we just happened to tackle into this really incredible pocket of people that were watching Sunrise in Tasmania that were talking amongst themselves. And the next minute we had, this whole huge market down there. So, you just never know. It's kind of, some of it's a bit luck. That's a bit luck. And obviously I never set out to be on TV. That was never my goal. So when people ask me about it, I'm like, look, it's been wonderful, but it was never my be all and end all goal to be the resident beauty and skin expert on Sunrise. But hey, I'll take it. If you're going to offer it to me, I'll take it. So
you've done a lot of speaking gigs as well. I saw you recently did Beauty Expo. What were you talking about there?
Yeah, so lots of speaking since then. That's all sort of come about at the same time, and it's easier to get speaking when you're on TV. So people think, oh, you can speak, you can be. So that's been great. Yes, Beauty Expo, they asked me to talk last year about, I was on a panel talking about Buccal, and then they asked me back and they offered me a spot on main stage. So I spoke about how upskilling yourself is, in my opinion, upskill yourself in your infancy in your career over investing in big machines, because big machines are big investments and they take maintenance, and often you take it on a lease. So you've got big overheads. Whereas if you build your business through your hands first and foremost, you'll build relationships and rapport. The money will come doing something that you love. And then when you're ready to invest in big machines, if you want to go that route, you'll have it. You won't have to borrow it, so you're best to drive your skills and upskill yourself first and foremost, instead of, I just find there's a lot of reps out there that are trying to flog off machines to therapists, and machines need the right insurance and they need, the right regulations, and we don't have any of that. So it's very risky and they're expensive. Whereas if you can master the art of facial massage or master your facial skills, you're going to have a client for life. I have clients that first met me in 2011 when I moved back from South Africa. Today, they are still with me. They have been coming to me every single month since 2011 because I focused on giving an incredible facial experience. So I'm very passionate about speaking to therapists that aren't sure where to go and what to invest in their career to get themselves to the next level. I say don't invest first and foremost in big, expensive machines. Make sure you've got the demand there, which you're going to get through giving good facials, and grow them that way. So Beauty Expo asked me to talk about that. And they also asked me to talk about psychodermatology and how you utilize that through relationship growth and relationship development, and then how that improves your retention rates in your business, because retention is king in the beauty industry. You want to hold those clients. And so, so I spoke on main stage at Beauty Expo, and they've asked me to speak again next year, which is really exciting. So I'm doing a lot of talking. I spoke at Spa Insiders last year, and I'm up for a few other speaking things here and there. So, and I enjoy it. I enjoy public speaking. I didn't used to, but I enjoy it now. So it's just another thing that gets to add to the list of things that I end up doing.
I love it. I love it so much. I love speaking. I think it's such a great way to be able to give back or pay it forward to others in the industry.
Yes.
And I think as well, when you kind of get out of your own head and worry about all your own insecurities, or what will I look like, or what if I stumble my words, and you just go, how can I help the people that are listening to me right now? Because I have a duty, I have an active service to provide them with value. Then you just show up and you're like, I got this.
I can do it. Yeah, that's good. That's pretty much what I do. I sort of say, how can I make the industry better?
Yeah.
Because the industry, let's be real, is in a bit of a mess. The standards of training aren't great. What's coming out isn't amazing. Unfortunately, we've got a lot to answer for in the Australian industry. So I like to get out there and go, let's make it better. Let's raise each other up, add value to the industry, because if you raise other women up in the industry, it's going to come back to you. So make sure that you are making the industry a better place for everyone. And then in return, the customers will respect the industry more. And guess what they do when they respect the industry more? They spend more money.
I love this. I love this.
Yeah.
Just circling back to what you were saying before about having the hands-on skills versus machines. Machines come and go with trends, but manual techniques have stood the test of time. How do you see that investing in hands-on skills benefits the therapist's career in the long run?
Yes. I feel like, oh my God, where do I start? So I believe that if you can invest into your own hands, you're going to get a lot more out of your career long term than if you don't invest in your skills and rely on machines. If you rely on machines, your overheads go up, your skills go down, and your ability to connect with your client goes down. And when you don't connect with your client, you don't build trust. And we don't build trust, they don't spend money and they don't make appointments with you. So I find that if you can use your hands to touch in your client in the right way and connect with them, your retention is going to go up because of all of that trust circle building that you need. The problem I find in the industry with the machines is that machines are completely unregulated. You can go to China, import a machine, burn someone, and, you know, your reputation goes down the toilet. Or you buy this expensive machine, but it turns out you're not marketing to your target customer. So people aren't coming for the proper treatment anyway, and they're not willing to spend the money that you need them to spend to pay off the machine. Then you've got to maintain the machine, blah, 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 blah. So I'm not anti-machines at all. Machines have their place, definitely. But I really feel like if you've got everything perfect, your branding is perfect, your offering is perfect, your reputation is built, you've got your customers coming to you, you're booked, then bring in a machine and then have the overflow, have the machine take care of. And I'll use LED as an example, as a very small example. When I was fully booked before I started hiring staff at the Dermal Diary, I was rammed. I was working like 15-hour days, 6 days a week. It got to the point where I was so overwhelmed, but it was right when LED became really big back in about, well, I mean, it's been big for a long time, but for me, it was when Heel Light was really big, and that was about 2017. And I looked into LED and I did the research and I found Heel Light. It was $25,000, but I was overwhelmed, and I'd been told that Heel Light can have an incredible impact on acne and rosacea. And guess what my target client was back then? Acne and rosacea. So what I did was I kept all my clients, but I hired a junior who was just starting out in the beauty, her diploma. She wasn't qualified. And I said, all I want you to do is man the LED room. So she just used to churn the LED through. We were doing effectively 3 customers an hour at $80 a pop with the LED. And her job was just to stand in the room, prepare them, put them under for the 13 minutes or the 22 minutes for acne, get them off, put their serum and their sun cream on. They'd leave. The next customer would come in. Meanwhile, I was in the treatment room doing facials and selling product. That's when I knew that model of machine was so complementary to my business, because I was paying her whatever I was paying her, a junior fee per hour, but I was earning $80 times 3 per hour, and her job was just to be customer service, make sure the customer was looked after, and churn that LED room.
Yeah.
And I realized that because my business model was so strong and I had all my clients and they were coming to me, whatever overflow was coming to me, I was saying to them, I'm sorry, I can't take you on as a facial client, but I can take you on as an LED client. I need you to come twice a week for 6 weeks. We're going to set you up for your LED treatments. Then at the end of the 6 weeks, I'll do a review and I'll work out then what we're going to do if your problem hasn't been solved. And it was great. So perfect example. Now you don't need to spend $25,000 because there's 50 million options for LED. You can buy one for $3,000. You know, and so I spent $25,000 in 2017, but you don't need to spend that anymore. I mean, there's heaps of brands out there that are really reputable and sell great machines for not that cost anymore. So if anything, the expenses have come down and you can still follow that model, but you can do that with any model. You just need to make sure you've got your customer base first. And I don't think it's a good idea to open a business with a really expensive machine with no customer base, because you're going to struggle really hard. Whereas if you open a business with your 2 hands and customers are coming to you for your 2 hands, and you're building, then get your machine later. You'll have your customers right there for it. It's no problem at all. So you can see why I recommend doing one over the other. And that's just how I did it. And it worked really well.
I love this. And I think it's kind of a testament that you do need to ask yourself the question, if I'm buying this machine, what void is it filling, or what am I compensating for? Because if your insecurity is, I don't have the skills, so I need the machine, it's like you need to double down on the skills.
Yeah.
Like obviously
skills.
Yeah, like even I know a few people that have been sucked into the hydrofacial kind of trap of like, I need a hydrofacial to open up my skin
It's
clinic.
big, that hydrofacial thing.
Yeah, they're like, what, 50, 60 grand or
Yeah,
something like that.
60,000. Yeah, it's a
And
lot.
because they're such a known brand, the other limitation to that is how much you can charge, because they're
Yes.
obviously
It's
giving their
comparable.
kind of,
Yeah,
price recommendation. And it's like, well,
yeah.
it might cost you X amount in product and then you charge this much, you make that much profit. And it's like, well, hey, what if I wanted to charge $200 for the hydrofacial, but hydrofacial has gone to everyone else and said you can only charge $150, whatever it is. This is just an example. I don't know the exact stats and figures, but it's just an example of like how you can get sucked into buying these machines, but because of what everyone else is offering the exact same thing, they're going to undercut you, you're going to struggle, and you still got to pay off the damn machine.
Yeah, you're pigeonholed because you're dictated by the company's kind of parameters. But you make a really good point, because if you go and train yourself, upskill yourself so beautifully to use your hands, no one can dictate to you how much you charge. No one can tell me how to charge. I can charge $1,000 if I want. And to be brutally honest, after 15 years, I'd still have some customers that would pay that. Now, it's not my model. I'm not going to do it, but no one can come to me and say, well, hang on, I don't think you should be charging that because your skills indicate that you can't. They can't say that to me because I've created the model myself. I haven't bought into someone's business model, which is hydrofacial or laser or whatever it is. So that's the beauty. That's the beautiful thing about upskilling yourself and taking control of upskilling yourself, is that you get to dictate your price point, and then your customers decide with their wallet about whether they think you're worth it. And it's okay if they don't think you're worth it, because too expensive is subjective. Too expensive for me might not be too expensive for you, but that's okay. If you think it's too expensive, you can go somewhere else, and I'll leave space for someone that doesn't think it's too expensive, and in they come. And again, I've proven that they will do that because I've now been doing it for 15 years and they keep coming.
Yeah. And that's the power with what you're doing as well, is not many other people are offering it. So you kind of do have that demand or monopoly on the market. Hey,
at the moment, that'll change.
You're not going to get it.
That'll change. Yes, you're right. I'm one of two at the moment that's kind of doing it in Australia. I saw another girl that's coming in recently, and that's okay. I'm very confident in my offering. Yes, for the last 2 years, we sort of have had a bit of monopoly on the market, but competition also keeps me on my toes, which I think is important, because otherwise we rest on our laurels and we think, oh, well, they'll always just come. They won't always just come. You have to prove your worth. So I'm very focused on proving that and adding ridiculous value to what I do, because value speaks and value gets word of mouth referrals. So as much as, yes, I was the first to bring it in and was amongst the first to offer training, that won't last forever, and if I did think it was going to, that would be not a very commercially sound way of thinking for myself. But the bottom line is I love doing it, and I love adding value to people's careers. I really want people to thrive. I really want women in our industry to thrive and earn money and be successful and be independent, financially independent, because the beauty industry, the skin industry is a fabulous place to work and be involved in for the right personalities. And so I love teaching skin therapists, massage therapists, and honestly, I feel like I'm at my best when I'm in front of a client and when I'm in front of a student, watching them thrive under what I'm teaching and seeing, oh yeah, my customers are going to love this. That's what I want to hear. My customers are going to love this, because then I know that they can go home and get their books filled. And that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day. We're trying to earn money to pay our mortgages and raise our families and have a holiday occasionally, and do the best work we can. So as much as, yes, at the moment there's a monopoly, it won't last forever.
Well, that's like any industry. It's going to have its peak, its trough, death.
Yep.
And I think as well, it's one of those fortunate, I wouldn't say lucky, I would just say fortunate positions where if you're first to market and everyone knows you're the first to market, then it's kind of like the mindset will always go to that person. And other competitors will come through. Give an example. So ChatGPT was first to market. So we know AI exists, but every time we refer to AI, we're going to be calling it ChatGPT.
Totally.
Same with audio.
Yeah, that's why I'm very big on the name, the Intrinsic Intensive, because I'm intrinsically training my therapist and it is an intense course.
Yeah.
So I do make sure that we're using the name correctly, and students that learn underneath me, I encourage them to say I'm intrinsically trained by Isabella through the Intrinsic Intensive, because branding is important. But I also don't know everything. I just do what I feel works for me and my brand at the time. And there's a lot of passion behind it because I really enjoy doing it.
For any trainers or educators out there that are listening to this episode right now, one thing that I would advise you to do is, if you have your own unique style, technique, strategy, whatever it may be, doing what Isabella's done and trademarking it is super powerful. Like being able to protect your IP and creating something that's your own, that's when you make that shift from industry follower to industry leader. Because you're
and trademarking is important. I mean, there are copyright laws to a certain degree which protect you to a certain degree, but trademarking has been important for me in my business growth. And yes, so I agree with you. If there are people out there that have a facial name or a business name or a style name or whatever it is that they want to protect, because let me tell you, there are a million copycats. There's more copycats than there are people that are innovators. And copycats are unfortunately what causes issues in the industry and upsets. So there will be people that will try and ride on your coattails. And if you are smart, you will trademark things that you are trying to protect. You can get a trademark lawyer or you can do it yourself. There are multiple ways to do it, but legal advice and legal protection is one of the best things that I've ever invested in, because then you know that you're as protected as you can be. Definitely.
I love that. So along your whole journey, you've done a lot of different business models and things like that. What have you found has been the most profitable? And then I also want to ask, what has been the most fulfilling?
The most profitable, that's a good one. Probably the products are the most profitable, I guess. Yeah, I guess the products are the most profitable. But then again, profit is an interesting thing that a lot of people don't understand when they start a business. And again, it comes down to your overheads. So, like I'm sitting in a clinic that is on my property. This clinic of mine is on my property in Bowral. It's separate from the house. And it's fantastic because it's reduced. It does all sorts of amazing tax, like it has all sorts of amazing tax implications for me. And also it's built into my life. So you could argue that my facials are very profitable depending on what kind of financial models you're working towards or against. For example, in Sydney, I charge $449 for my intrinsic illumination infusion facial. And so you could argue that there's a fair amount of profit involved in that. And I'm aligning myself with some lawyers that are being paid $500 or $400 an hour. So there is profit. There's definitely profit in combining the fact that I make my own product and then I combine that with a facial. But a lot of people also don't realize that when you make your own product, when you bring in a product to your skin clinic and from another company, they provide you with all the marketing and all the photos of the pretty models using product on their face. Guess who does that when you run your own product? You have to buy models and buy houses to have photographs, photo shoots, and buy the clothes that they're wearing and have the makeup artists. So again, as much as it's profitable, yes and no.
It has a lot of expenses.
Yeah. I think fixing skin with my products and my hands that's definitely the most rewarding thing, is when people come to me with like major acne and I fix it through using my hands on them and using my product range. That's pretty rewarding. But I think the courses and teaching students and teaching skin therapists to do an incredible facial I find very rewarding. The courses are a lot of work. I only take 12 students, but my God, by the last day, I'm exhausted because I give so much. My husband's now come to accept that I basically need a week off after I do each course, which isn't so profitable.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's like, well, when you're burnt out for a week, kind of defeat the purpose. But it's not, for me, it's not always about the money. Well, it's about the money a lot of the time when you're paying the bills. I'm the major breadwinner in my family, so I pay, the major bills. But it's not, for me, money has never been necessarily a main driver for me. It's been the satisfaction of people coming to me since 2011. And then when I won this award, this business award, I had no idea that would happen. Like it was the first time I've ever been acknowledged for being an amazing entrepreneur. I actually wasn't aware that I would beat these people. Like I just wasn't. I just go about my day and do my business and do what I love. And I know for the most part I'm okay at it. And then when I was awarded this award, I was shocked. I just didn't realize that people had acknowledged that this was a good thing. So, yeah, I think it's a tough one to answer, but I guess the profit is the combination of using and selling my own range and using them in facial treatments, but then also being able to command a really good salary but I mean, having said that, I've also taken myself to Paris and London and paid all the money to get there. So like when it comes down to it, what's profit? Do you know what I mean? Like if I calculated it, I think I did calculate it for the for the talk that I did for Expo, I've worked out that I've spent about $250,000 on educating myself. So, I mean, once you add it all up, like I guess day to day, the products and the facials are very profitable. But I mean, if you discounted all of the education, I probably haven't earned any money.
Yeah, I was the exact same as you. So I'm 22 now. I started my journey in personal development and business world. Well, I would say business coaches, from like the age of 18, and I spent $100,000 and everyone's like, how did you spend it? And I was like, I just went on payment plans and hustled hard. Like I had to make this money. But what I've found is when you talk to other people who have, created successful businesses, I would say like multi-6, 7-figure businesses, in their revenue, they're at least investing like 20 to 50% back into their own skills, their own development, their own education, improving their team members. And so when you look at these people and you're going, wow, they have so much money, they must be so successful. The only reason that they've gotten to that level of success is because they've just constantly reinvested back into the business, not gone, I'm going to go buy this Gucci handbag to show off, Chanel earrings and get that validation. Like they're going,
money,
how do I make this business better for my clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think it's interesting because a lot of people would look at me and go, oh my God, she's gone to Paris and she's gone to London. And yes, I've done those things. They all cost a lot of money, but I also know the value of doing that because A, I can put it on Instagram. B, I can put it on the website. People
point hacking, get some cheeky points in there.
Exactly. So, and the other thing too is that I had a customer come the other day and I said, how did you hear about me? And she said, oh, I think I've been following you on Instagram or something. And then she said, I saw you went to Paris in December and I thought to myself, anyone that takes themselves to Paris to train is into their career. So I'm going to book with her. So it's not just one thing. It's drops and drops and drops of impression and branding and professional, reputation and all of these things that add up, and I say that to my students. I'm like, I've spent all of this money so you don't have to. Like I'm training you on all of this stuff. It's you want to be trained by someone that is that invested in their career. But yes, I do invest a lot of money back into my upskilling because I'll forever be a student too. Because I get bored. I want to learn stuff too. I mean, I've been doing the Intrinsic Facial now since 2019. And when I got to last year, I was like, I love this facial, but what else is out there? So then I went back to Paris and learned these new techniques. And now I've got a whole new facial because frankly, I've been doing it for 5 years. I'm training it only now for 2 years, but I've done it till I'm blue in the face. I wanted something new for myself. And hey, I get to go to Paris at the same time. So like win-win.
It's so interesting you say that because I think one of the biggest issues that happens within our industry when people do make it past the 2 or 5 year mark, because we kind of know the 2 year mark has a massive turnover rate, people leave, and then you've got the 5 year mark, which is usually more back problems, RSI and all the fun things. But a lot of women that do, I say women because predominantly it is a very heavily dominated female industry. A lot of women that have sat in that 10 to 20 year mark, sometimes they just fall behind because they get really complacent and they don't, like, once again, coming back to the upskilling, they're not learning the new techniques and like what worked back then, what products were available, what information was available. We're constantly evolving. And I think that it doesn't matter what level you're at, whether you're new to the industry, whether you're a seasoned professional, whether you're an industry leader, like going back to basics and reminding yourself, oh, what are those foundations? Because sometimes we forget them. And then like just tweaking one thing here and there over time, that's where you'll innovate. That's where you'll start to lead in the industry. And I know, like you were saying, I've invested so much, I've gotten here. When I put out a podcast episode, it cost me about $500 per episode. So obviously the people that you think about having on the podcast, you want to make sure that they're providing value or that they're the right person. And I wouldn't choose you if I didn't go, holy moly, this girl, well, this woman, incredible, empowering, aspiring woman. She is out here doing all these things. I think it's absolutely incredible and a testament to what is possible if you actually just believe in yourself, because obviously you didn't have it figured out. And I think this is something that I want to touch on as we wrap up the episode, because it's so much pressure going into this industry and thinking you have to have it figured out and you're going to do this, this, and this, and this. It's great to have a plan, but you're going to make mistakes. And it's going to cost money, take some sacrifice, but you will get there if you're consistent in the way you show up and you keep upskilling.
Yeah, and I think you've got to get past, like I like to play into my fears. I have a firm thing that if you can face your fears, life becomes much easier. We are very fearful, and often the anticipation is the fear factor part. But if you can push through the fear and put yourself out there, there'll be the problem that I'm finding in our industry is there's so many people that are less qualified than me and less experienced, and they're doing more things than me. So I'm like, hang on a minute. Like, people need to be aware that if you don't do it, someone else that's less qualified and less experienced will do it when you could be doing it. So you just need to get out there and push yourself and do it, and also realize that you've got to put the work in. It's not just going to come. And I use this example a lot when I teach, is that I went to Paris and London in December and learned 2 new facial techniques. And I wanted to launch my new facial, the Intrinsic Illumination Infusion, in April. So I had 4 months. I had January, February, March, April. I had to design a facial and perfect it for my facial launch. Let me tell you, when I launched the Intrinsic Facial in 2019, I was no children and only had myself to look after and had a little business. Add on that 5 years, my goodness, trying to design this facial and get it practiced and have me know the moves perfectly. Because of course, when I launched, my PR agent had TV personalities coming for the launch. We had Nat from Channel 7 Sunrise come. Like, we had all of these journos come and they were all filming me. So it had to be perfect. So I had to take time out of my day every day and away from my kids and away from my life to practice. And a lot of people don't realize that all of this stuff is work. You have to put the hours in. If you want to be really good, you've got to practice. It's like saying, I want to lose weight and get into this dress. If you go to the gym once, it's not going to happen. You've got to cut out the crap and you've got to eat your lentils and you've got to eat your greens and, you know, feed your gut and go to the gym 3 times a week for a couple of months to get into the dress. You can't, I'm just noticing that there's a lot of women out there that'll be like, I'll just do an online course and I'll do a couple of days of it and it'll be fine. And then they turn up at my course and go, oh my God, I tried to learn this online and it was a nightmare. And I'm like, you can't learn this online. You have to learn it in person and you have to practice. So even after my course finishes, I say, you've got to do this amount of hours of practice to become really good at this. This is not a set and forget treatment, and nothing in our industry is a set and forget. And once it is a set and forget, you know, like, time to freshen up the skills, girl, like, learn something new. You know, we're all evolving. We've got to keep going. So yeah, you are right. And it is one of those things that if you face the fear and you go out and do it, you can do it.
So if you were to give whoever's listening to this episode 3 pieces of advice for their business, what would your top 3 pieces of advice be?
So I think, good question. The number one, business is all about relationships. So if you can hone in on your relationships with your customers and make them feel amazing and, offer an incredible experience from the moment they come across you, half your job is done. So if you've got a beautiful website, you answer their email within a day, you tell them exactly where to come, you bring them into a beautiful space, they're looked after from woe to go, they're followed up with, you give them a beautiful facial, you build that relationship, you'll get retention. If you drop the ball on many of those things, they'll go somewhere else. They'll find someone else to go to. They'll complain about your costs, whatever it is. So perfecting your client experience. Content is king in this day and age. So, post what you do behind the scenes. Like I do tend to post a lot of me doing facials and facial massage. I do the occasional family post. People seem to like those, but not that many. I'm pretty honest and real in my posting. So most people get me from day dot. They kind of know what I'm going to say, or they know to expect me to be direct. So, content is king, and investing in someone that can give you some advice about your content and social media, not necessarily hiring a social media manager, but getting either onto like a social media platform membership where you're signed in and you get tips and tricks every month on how to run your socials, getting your correct branding sorted. That's all tied up in your socials, and keeping those overheads low. If you can start a business in a low overhead environment, like from your spare room on the side, do that before you go out and think that you have to get a commercial space. You do not have to get a commercial space. If you are good at what you do, people will come to you no matter where you are. And I have proven that because I've got clients that used to come to me in South Africa. They moved to Australia and they are coming to me today.
Damn.
So because I offered a good service and I listened to my customers, now I sold my business in Sydney. I've got customers that drive an hour and a half from Sydney to Barrel to come and see me here. People have followed me everywhere. So people don't fear that, you open up a space and then you need to move it, 6 months later. That's fine. If you're offering an incredible offering, people will stay with you. So don't feel that you have to spend all of this money. I set up the Dermal Diary when I first set it up with $5,000. That was it. I took a room above a hairdresser. I put new flooring down, painted the walls, put new curtains up. I put my treatment bed in, bought a steamer, bought a few accessories, hung a few prints on the wall, and away I went. So humble is an amazing thing. We don't all have to have shiny mirrored windows and, you see these fit outs on Instagram and great, fair play to these people that are spending all these money on fit outs. You don't have to do that though. You do not have to do that. Keep the overheads low and your business will thrive. I think that was 3 tips.
I love that. I think there
Invest in yourself.
So many different little pieces you can pull out of that.
Yeah.
So if people are absolutely loving this and they want to continue to see your journey and connect with you, I can't English today, where can they find you and connect with you?
Yeah, so I've got 3 handles, but the biggest handle that I've got that I spend the most time on is just my name, which is Isabella Loneragan. I've also got a clinic, which is Isabella Loneragan Skin, and then there's Ragan, which is Ragan Skin. Otherwise, my website, which is ilskin.com.au. And the IL Skin website has an education page. So if people are wanting to learn, they can click onto that page and there's lots of information about where I teach and when. But other than that, I'd mostly post on at Isabella Loneragan.
I feel so embarrassed. I've been going, Isabella Loneragan.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
I said Buccal. I said
the same thing.
And then I changed it to Buccal. I need to
don't worry. Don't worry.
The other day I was like going, I'm such a perfectionist when I'm talking on this podcast, and sometimes I just keep hitting record and I just need to be so much more authentic and just fumble my words and own it. I love it.
I go on live TV and I fumble and no one says anything anymore. They just go, next segment. People don't pay enough attention. They're just like, next. And we're in that world of just instant next. So I wouldn't worry about it.
So true. From this, if you have been nervous about putting that story up and talking, just do it.
Put it up.
Who cares? Be authentic, show up, because people will be really drawn and attracted to you because you're authentic.
Yeah. I think that's true. And also I've got a rule with Instagram, one hit wonder, which means if I've got something to say and I'm doing a story, I give myself one shot, because what I used to do was do like 20 shots and then I'd get over it and not post it. Now I'm like, if you don't get it out in one post, that's it. Like, you're moving on. I don't have the time now. So I just go on and say it. And I'm like, oh, if I didn't say the word right, whatever, I'm just moving on now. People don't pay enough attention anyway. So, it's not a big deal.
So true, so true, so true. Oh, thank you so much for giving
problem. It's been
so much value.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for having me. I'm loving watching what you're doing. You're doing a great job. So keep doing it because the industry needs it.
Oh, thank you. It's really interesting. The other day someone said to me, the best way to build networks with someone is like to reach out to people you want to connect with and just celebrate them or appreciate them for what they're doing. And I was like, it's really interesting because a lot of the incredible people I interview on the podcast, and myself included, sometimes you don't have many people cheering you on when you're doing these things, and it gets really lonely. And you would just expect that you get all these shout outs and things. And I'm like, beauty industry leaders, like, is it somewhere? And then just being able to have conversations like this really reminds me of why I'm doing this. And I just
good. I could talk to you for hours about that topic. I won't because we don't have any more time. But yes, you are right. And women are funny creatures. So it's a really amazing point you make about reaching out to people and just saying, I love what you're doing, because that's how you connect with the people that you want in your circle. And it's very hard to find the right people to be in your circle. So good for you. Keep doing that. But you're doing a wonderful job. I love it. I've been listening to your podcast. So, I'm all over it.
Fangirling women.
I listened to Jade this morning because I met her at the awards and I was like, this podcast's amazing.
This is so good. Oh.
Yeah, went for my walk. So keep going.
Thank you so much for your time on today's episode. I hope you found a lot of value out of it. If you've listened, please put a screenshot to your story, tag at Sammy Kennedy Coach, at Beauty Industry Leaders, and at Isabella Loneragan.
Well done.
We'll be here to start a convo with you. But other than that, I hope you have an incredible week, and I will catch you on next week's episode. Bye.
Audience exclusive.